Hello, everyone, and welcome to the broadcast. I am newtmechanist, and tonight we are going to be continuing our game development project. Tonight, part of the target is to get some objects shuffled around. We have a kind of a global static, class handling our entities, and I want to shift as much of those I want to shift as much of that over to more of a service model. Get that fully encapsulated in the game object. I was briefly distracted because Twitch says rewards are enabled on my channel, and that doesn't make sense. But how? Oh. Technically, it's true. They have a, subscribe and get 3 months of Nitro, but you can't subscribe to my channel. I may re-enable that someday. Hey there, Tassie. James, welcome. Let's check in with kitties real quick. Mason is on the bed. Ember is in her spot. Sky in his. Sherbet was very briefly in the play area. Oh, there he is. He smacked the, one of them smacked the pucks around a little bit. Mason loves playing with those. If I go over and I hit the pucks around, he'll usually trot over, climb up and lay on it and grab at the ones that are moving around. Sometimes he'll do that himself. I'll hear him smacking him around, and he'll occasionally grab one and fling it off. So that's part of dealing with the air hockey table, is finding the missing pucks. But yeah. Let me show you what I'm talking about in the project here. So we have our entity manager, and just about everything uses this guy. We have all the public statics in it. And I want to change this around so that there is an individual entity. But there's a lot of shuffling that has to go on for that. So if we look at game, which is hiding here, we have some direct references to it, that kind of thing. So what I want to be doing is set up, well, what I would really like to do is set it up so a lot of these things are not Node 2Ds. The entity managers and the like, I should say. That they are created objects that live in things like the core. The equivalent of the startup of the game. And whenever we create a game node in order to start a session, then it feeds those to the game object and says, here are your services and the like. And those get relayed, all that stuff gets configured and passed along. How to get an actual dependency injection, like C# supported, load it all in Godot, given that there's no actual main going on, I think. Nowhere where we can kind of intervene. But that's part of why I want to get these over to standalone classes that aren't Godot by themselves. We'll have to see how that goes. This is a Godot object entirely because it's being loaded as a global. Which, again, we don't want. Which is also why I have created a new branch, because the potential for explosion and needing to step back is non-trivial. Also, did you know that Ghost Energy created a Welch's grape flavor version? And it is. It's Welch's grape flavor. cough is still happening a little bit, so, heads up on that. Said I'll try to hit that mute button, but I apologize if I blow out your ears briefly. Okay, so to get this working, one of the things that we're going to need to do is go into core and have a setup services kind of logic. Core is the starting class. It is the root of the Godot tree. If we run it, I can show you that. Loading, loading, loading. It is running. Shift back over to Godot. Over to Godot. We're in our remote, so we're looking at what's running. So this is the actual Godot running. Here's the core node at the top. Then we have subnodes under it. Color rectangle is there to show me the center of the screen. What I would like is that this is something that we instantiate. We tell it, here is the root node. It goes in then and is passing that node down, because a lot of these need to know what the root node is. Well, the game knows that node, so it attaches itself to the core. Mesh render needs to know what the game node is, so it can attach its mesh instance. Collision manager needs to know, so it attaches its areas. We'll have something for camera. Inventory needs to know, so it adds its boxes and what have you. And in the core, we'll set up all of those services. We'll set up these things. And whenever we create a game, we say, here are the things you're going to use, which includes this node. Well, it won't have to actually be that node. But potentially, game object will be another thing that we add an override for. So game object could be a injected dependency as well. So to accomplish this, we need to get all of these guys ideally to be non-Godot objects by themselves. We might have to load a packed scene into the game to add that stuff. I'm not sure. But I'd like... I don't know. We may keep them as Node 2Ds. The trick is going to be making sure that they all still work. Yeah. Because I think I've set up their scripting so they work properly. We look at inventory. It extends a Node 2D. And I don't believe it actually has anything inside of it by default. We'll stop this so I can see it. Okay, no, it does have an inventory UI by default. Because if I keep this as a Node 2D, it still complains about lingering. One of the problems with Godot engine, this whole interface, is that if there is a bad reference, if it loses a reference and the engine doesn't catch it at the moment that that reference is removed, it will become an orphaned reference in the project file. And despite constantly being shown that's not there anymore, like player inventory, that's not there anymore, it will continue to insist, hey, I can't find this anymore. Really now? Because there is actually a line somewhere in the project file that you have to clean up. Now, maybe they've put some esoteric thing in here that will actually handle that. I don't know what without explicit ownership means, you know? Because inventory UI cell exists, I think. Yeah. That is a thing. So I don't know. Maybe there's a tool hiding somewhere to do that. But last I found, you pretty much have to go into the file and purge stuff and force it to reload itself. It's very messy. It is another one of those, when I have a clean step and I remember to do it, I'll do it off camera because sometimes you have to do some aftermath cleanup after you do it. All right. So what we want to be able to do then is instantiate these things as part of themselves. So inventory will create an inventory UI properly. Part of the problem that I've seen with just trying to create the objects is that all of the Godot stuff doesn't happen properly. If I try to create an inventory, this may not get populated because I'm not instantiating an instance of this packed scene. I'm just using the object, and that object does not intrinsically have these exports. That's part of it being a packed scene. But we're going to find out. So, we're going to do a test of that by going into game. And during our ready, when we know all of the nodes are available, we are going to say we need a inventory. Inventory is equal to new inventory. So this is a new. We might be able to do like an inventory.instantiate. But I think we need to do it like this, and then I think there's an instantiate. That might only be for packed scenes. Yeah. The reason I don't want to use a packed scene is the only way to get an actual packed scene in code would be to call load. Is it load resource or something like that? Do I have Godot in here? Gotta have Godot in here. Let's look at our catalog. Should have that in our load textures. Resource loader.load. Okay. Again, this is a learn as we go, as might be apparent by what's happening right now. If you have suggestions on what I might be missing as far as mechanics, feel free to call out. If you just want to chat because you don't understand any of this and don't intend to, feel free to do that as well. That's reader. We need resource loader. So you have to give it a path, which is the path in the Godot tree, which I don't want. That is a string constant, and it has to match the path. There's no just use this class name kind of thing. So I don't think we can do that. So if I create a new inventory, this is a node 2D. So I can say this dot get tree. thought it was add child once we have the tree. Let's look at our render here. I don't think we need to actually do this anymore. But anyway. Yeah, okay, this is just getting all the textures. Yeah, should be... Maybe we can just do self.addChild. Okay, so we have an inventory object that has been created, and we have added it to the tree as part of this process. Let's verify that it doesn't just intrinsically explode. So in remote, in game, we have this inventory, which is part of it by itself. And then we have this inventory object, which has no inventory UI, because it is not a scene. It is just the object. And that is one of the weaknesses as far as Godot is concerned, is getting those things set up properly, getting the node children set up properly. Because even if this is empty, like it doesn't assign the export, if you see, it does not have an inventory UI child here. That's a problem. So getting around this largely means having these loading them as exports. And I don't really want to do that, but we may have to. We may have to, in core, go in and have exports for each of these packed scenes that are the things I want to use. That there is a pack there, we take the packed scene for mesh render and do an instantiate on it to get the corresponding node, add that as a child. Yeah. So in inventory, so if we go into an inventory, we go into ready when the we mess with our inventory UI. This is a thing that we actually have at that point. Let's just do that for another quick test here. We're not going to mess with that object. Okay, yeah, still doesn't work. So that's part of what we need to get around if we want to do this, is sadly, I think we're going to need to have these things passed around. Like, them passed around as packed scenes, which means core needs to have exports for every type of packed scene that we want to use, and it needs to supply it accordingly. Now, alternately, we could be messier and have a global that does that. Could we make it as a resource? If it's a resource, we still have to call load on it somewhere. Do we? It's a good experiment. It's a good experiment. Go over into Godot to create them. Needs to extend. All of these should be. These extend node, not resource. We'll just go with base resource and go from there. We have to be very careful with these because this is one of the things that Godot handles very badly if you try to move them around or anything like that. What do we want to do about this, though? We could have... It's not that it extends a node 2D. I'm sorry, a resource. It needs to extend a node 2D to work here. We could have the inventory just... we could have a inventory resource that extends node 2D. Testing here. Way back, one of the things that I was trying to do was encapsulate enemies and whatnot as resources. Things like this is their texture, this is all of that, as far as catalog. And the catalog was a entity that had those plugged into it. Like, here is a list of all of your enemy objects. And the problem with that is that the project blew up when it, if those got moved in any way. Like, not just it lost them, it started to fail and error like crazy. So I need to be careful about using these, but we can still... we are going to add a script. Work with me, Godot. So if you'll notice, it put an empty script on it. So I'm going to do a new C# script. Script path can't be empty. What now? Okay, let's... Inventory. Don't know if this will actually work. I could have references in here, but that still circles us back around to the problem that I would then need to have the resource. But let's find out. Let's find out. Need a constructor. We're just gonna. So then we go over into Godot. Game inventory. There we go. Build the project. That should get us the resource in here. And then we have our inventory scene. So then we'll go into our game. A little further away from the keyboard than I'd like because Sherbet is on my headrest and pulling the chair back. Dot inventory instantiate. Node name. Okay, so we're getting this resource object. This is a known thing that has an export on it. I don't know if this export will still work, but we're about to find out. Okay, it's not even there at all. To at ready. Right. This is the export. This is the thing that tells me what what the packed scene is. Just doing a quick read here. Yeah. Like, oh no, you want to load by path. I don't want to load by path. That breaks every time I try to organize my folders. Quick reading. That's got a path. Don't want a path. So, I think part of the fundamental problem here is that at best, those exports are going to be on ready. Which means, as of this moment, it's not ready yet. It's not part of the tree. And it can't be part because inventory isn't part of the tree yet. Or I'm sorry, the inventory, like everything about this isn't ready yet. And if I want to try to call load to get the actual resource, then I'm back to square one. I have the same problem. Which loops us back around to exports on core. Which, I mean, those exports could also be can be bundled into a resource, but that puts us into the same problem. Is I would need to have a folder of known things to pass it. Isn't necessarily end of the world, but because one of the ideal things is if I wanted to have really good testing, would be to be able to start the whole application with a parameter that is, this is what we're going to load up. It is not out of the question to have a resource object that is that, but I need to be able to pass that in, which could be a resource path. That part of the test is to have a functional resource path. And then we could load those things because we now have an object that is loaded. And if it's loaded, we should have all the bits. Let's double check that though. Are going to stop this. Then need to get the resource path to that resource object. Doesn't actually need to be an inventory resource at this point. Hey there, Todd. Welcome. We are wrangling stuff here. Let's try that. Tell me of your errors. No errors. We have a test. We have... Okay. Okay. So, my thought is that we need to see if there's a run param we can set up long term. Checking. We'll switch over to cat cam while I'm reading. It'll give you cute fuzzy animals to look at. Let's see, who can we see on camera? Okay, we have 3 of 5. Sherbet was on my headrest a moment ago. Don't see Sammy in any of her spots. Sherbet is actually getting food. He noticed that I looked at him, so he's coming back to my headrest. Hey, bud. Bud, come here. He might cross into the right center camera in a moment. We'll see. Okay. You can see his paws crossing by. He is looping back around, deciding where he wants to be. At some point, I realized I was a cat person, and I've kind of leaned in. Anyway, get command line arguments gives a pool string array. It'll be a... Seems that it's considered an array, so maybe I can interact with it in that fashion. Okay. We are going to... So, we're going to get a pool string array from the OS call of get command line arguments. And what we should be able to do is check if there's something there. We'll have a default one. Okay. Okay. So, what I'm going for... Well, hey there, Rex. The name is familiar, so I expect long time no see. It rings bells. Not any clearer, but welcome nonetheless. full string array. Hey, how about what does this live in? OS. Turns just a string array. Okay, okay. It's coming along. Let me show you where we are. Well, where we're back to. Okay, I don't know why it choked there, but you see a bunch of them appeared down here and swooped away. Welcome back, Todd. They'll make their way back. So we have 8,000 blobs. Each of them is doing like 5 to 8 different types of motion. Each of them has collision. If they collide with the player, they go away. If we fall below 8,000 blobs, we make more. So yeah, lots of stuff like this. We have the capability of drag and drop on the UI. The leftmost ones cannot be dragged and dropped. We don't even let you pick them up. We're going to be able to use this to define what the spawners are. Okay, but for each so do a thing. So I don't know if we can set command line arguments on the Godot side. I don't know where we're getting that hitch right now. It be hiding here somewhere. No. Would be boot splash, you know. I am not familiar with those, Infernite, and welcome nonetheless. Checking to see if we have anything fundamental to the project where we can set that up. You'd think it would be in the run, you know? Okay, quick check. See some of the syntax here. OENW. I only read and speak English, so I can briefly translate, one or two phrases, but I won't be able to do that after. Huh. That's not what we want here. That would seem to be the case. I mean, they're cats. And for the most part, we're a programming channel with some games, so. do. Done. I'm reading documentation, if you're curious as to why we're just sitting. Oh, look, there's Sammy. Why we're sitting on the cat cam. I'm trying to find out if there's a graceful way to set command line arguments so that I can test using them. Okay. Maybe? Work with me, Godot. Work with me. What are you doing? Orbit is trying to chew a cable protector there. Which is the reason that there's a cable protector there. Yeah, I see you. Editor main run args in the project settings. Okay, maybe. There we go. So then over here in Codeland, we have looks like I switched to C# performance. Where am I? Performance. Let me rip out some of our logic here. So before 2,500 entities was pretty much enough to bring it to its knees. Maybe. With collision and with the entities making like 5 to 8 micro motions, about 8,000. If I remove collision, about 10,000 to 15,000. depending on how many motions they do. Contains. No threading or anything like that. Thanks for joining us, Todd. Not running. Let's strip this out real quick. Maybe that this is causing a problem. A repo check. What did I break? For usability, as far as experience and performance, I would lean C#. If you are really comfortable with C++, go ahead and do that. There's a lot of power and potential optimization there. But if I were just like picking those two blind and saying, I'm going to just run with this, learn as I go, definitely not C++. C++ is such a minefield language. Powerful, low level, and the negatives are that it's powerful and low level. Lower level. Okay, project settings. Move that. Okay, setting the debug properties. It didn't like. Did I use a reserved one? Hey there, Cherry. Okay, I didn't format it properly. Custom parameters have to have a x equals y format, I guess. Welcome back. We are working on our game again today. I don't know if it will be test or -- test that it will detect. Okay. Go into our project settings and we're going to say test is equal to test2. To our code, and we're going to say, does it contain test? I don't know the structure of it, so we're going to but yeah, where am I? I don't know that I demonstrated this, so a wave of them just spawned at 500, 500, somewhere down here. This is 0, 0. So now they come back. They're doing a spiral in, an S curve, and a move to cursor. If they collide with the player object sitting at 0, 0, they go away and they are recreated at 500, 500 again. When they spawn, initially they're doing a spiral out in a double 5-star burst. I worked with C++ back when object-oriented was kind of the thing to do. Like, it was the new hotness. Multi-threading, all of that stuff was oh, no. I had professors that were super interested in this newer super flexible programming language, Java. What did you just get, Half Pint? Okay. Now we're going to... Oh, I didn't check the standard out there. Okay, no test output. Cool. Hopefully there will be some games on it you like. Okay, so in the code, instead we're going to do for each string arguments. Do that right, so it would auto fix it for me. Show me the thing. Ooh. That I don't want. So our first argument is the main scene to load. That looks like that is a built-in argument when the program is running, is what the main scene is. But then the second argument is entirely like what we passed in, the whole thing. Okay, how are we going to do that gracefully? Okay, we have to cut it up. We have to cut it up. All right. Trugments. One thing that I've called out in this is I'm trying to use very verbose variables to minimize the amount of comments I need to remember what's going on. I think that's just healthy in general, but that means even like classic abbreviations I'm trying to avoid. I'll still use counter variables like single letter counters, but I'm not going to use arg, I'm going to use argument. String key. So contains equal split is going to give me a string array. There we go. JR, things are doing well. They're doing well. Zero value is equal to strings 1. Okay, no. We can get this key is equal to string 0. Else. We strip the dash dash off the front. Oh. My bad. Thanks for calling it out, JR. I forgot to toggle that back over. Okay, so we've got the key in the value. There are going to be some of them we don't care if they have a value or not. Or at least we should be allowed to do that. Let's find out. Settings, editor, run. We might have to do that based on what it said. No, it's like it demands equals. Okay. All right. This isn't really a problem. Okay, so it expects there to be an equals. You can't have space value, so it might be treating this, because it doesn't have an equals, as if it is a value by itself. That should not be the case. Because if I put that dash dash, it shouldn't care. Really doesn't like that. That's silly. We're going to print the argument. If it contains equal, we'll print it. Our use case would imply that there is going to be a argument. See how it has nothing as a value? If I don't put that equal sign in there, it pitches a fit. Let's try a different name, though. Squiggly. Test is a reserved one. Problem solved. Sort of. Why you no print? Oh. Because it doesn't contain equals. Run, verify. So we're doing all this song and dance in order to let us specify what the path to the core resource is going to be. And that resource will have a listing of all the service scenes that we want to use. What an entity manager looks like, what a mesh manager looks like. And the reason that I want to do that is I want to have the flexibility of creating alternates and being able to insert them in for like, what if I did this differently purposes. But additionally, for testing, I'd like to be able to strip things down to their most basic logic and test them in more isolated circumstances. So, for example, if I created a bunch of logic that was essentially, hey, here is the renderer, here is the collision manager, and I had dummy versions of them that do nothing at all. What would happen if I just let the entities run for X period of time? Do I get any errors? Do I get any anomalies? That kind of thing. What happens if I want a very specific collision test? Swap out the entity manager, create exactly the entities that I want, and have them set on the relevant collision course kind of stuff. That would let me do that sort of thing. we're not going to. We're just going to start with a default path, but set up those scenes so they can be propagated out to the other things. I was curious, if you look, I'm dragging my cursor around the screen, and all of the blobs are sort of dragged in that direction, but still very much influenced by their other movement. Okay, so if it contains an equal, we're going to split it out. We are going to do... add the key and the value, and then we'll do like it's about right. Oh, different pattern. Percent %S would be if I was doing it in C++, I should say. That's not what we're doing. When you do a print string in C++, you do a format string that uses %letter to denote what variable type you're using when you're passing those variables in. Didn't like that. Is a big ugly stack error that we've got. Oh wow, we can't end. Just one moment. Arugments. Arguments. That's not the problem, but it was bothering me. Run it from the C side so that we can see. There is nothing in arguments. There is nothing in parsed arguments or parsed arguments.keys. Okay. Oh, that's because we're not running it through the editor. Hey, Mike. And thank you. this might be a more appropriate set for what we're going through right now. Take a look at the full error here and see if that's... And hello, Burn Boy. Low-level error. Very low-level error. Okay. Contains equal, we're going to split it. And time being, just do he. Trim it down to its bare minimum. Running. Okay, that first argument. What I'll want to do is say, don't parse that argument. Oh, but all of them. All of them could be arguments that we don't care about and that we shouldn't try to parse, really. No, this should still work. This should still work. There's a problem with this. It's not... Why is it pitching a fit? If it's back the way it was. Just make sure we don't have a debug print formatting error here. Actually look at the debug values. Nothing here. But we should have one. We should have one. There should the there should be an argument in this. Okay, when it's running in the editor, it has a default command line parameter. When it is running in C#, it does not have that default command line parameter. Hey there, Ezra. Let's run over here. Oh. Value is null. Maybe it doesn't like that. No? No, because that would be firing then. Hey there, M. I don't, Ezra. I'm terrible with names unless they show up very frequently. Okay. We are cooking up a Bullet Heaven style game, kind of Vampire Survivors kind of thing. All right, we are getting the arguments in. So, what else? Core gimmick of the game is once we have stuff loaded in, is all of the movement of these blobs that you're seeing is a series of like micro motions that tell them what to do over time. And the weaponry is going to be constructed that way. You'll select an initial weapon, but the upgrades to it will be in the form of that kind of change. So it would be things like it splits into 5 and it moves in an outward spiral kind of stuff. And the order in which you put them and which ones are there will have that sort of impact. So the slimes, I believe, are splitting into 5, then splitting into 5 again, and then doing a spiral out 3 seconds later. They start to spiral inward while doing a sine wave kind of movement while following the cursor. Kind of in that order, I believe. Because we had that error at the beginning, it does not handle user input properly. Oh, but is split. I think like um Hey there, P. Let's see. If you're on YouTube, then it's often, I think it is like a minimum of 15 seconds. Okay, well, we can't. Running, go in here. We're getting the key. Yeah, the Twitch side tends to be a little faster as far as the delay. YouTube is a little slower. You can watch on whichever one you find preferable. Which part is breaking down? Are you going to sit with me or are you going to stand there, Sky? Come here. There we go. Sky has come to sit on my lap. All right, Em. Thanks for swinging through. Just make sure I'm doing this right at all. Okay, my string format thing is not working. That's where it's going wrong. Real quickly. Syntax. Ah. Everybody ready to have me feel stupid? Just like it said, this is a 0 index. It's using a 0 indexed array. 0. Zero, 1. 2 is out of bounds. Since it is a string array, it's really not going to like it if you try to access out of bounds. It's not a list. Lists are friendly. It still won't like it. There we go. Huzzah and such. And we still have input handling because we didn't detonate it during the game constructor. Hey there, Noru. Welcome. We're working on our game. And at the moment, what we're working on, while I give Sky chin scratches, is setting up the command line so we can specify the path to an alternate resource listing, because core is going to be the thing that distributes our resources, our things we need. Could have completely alternates, but I think having a resource object is what we want. You, and we're going to go over to the Godot side, and we're going to delete that and that. For side, we're going to have so startup resources are going to be resource objects that define which services to use, which things will be the actual child objects of our game object. And then we will distribute those amongst them accordingly. Entity Manager is going to be the last one we do this with, because it is the one that is most likely to explode violently, or cause a violent explosion as we change it. Okay, so we're parsing all of them when we do this. We will make constants for this. Oh, how do we want to do this? I do want to flatten the key. There we go. So then in the Godot side, we will set up a default path in here, where first we'll parse these. I'll set up a static function that does this and returns it. Then we're going to go through the parsed arguments and get each individual part here. So if we run, we should get the path printed out, whatever I've got in that path thing. Okay. So for this test, to test it on the C# side, we'll have to set command line arguments as well. Let's find it. Let's find it. Project properties. I think it would be. Your listening test, do you remember? Oh, tasks may have been pulled into some MechWarrior 5 clans. Just build. Command line arguments. So when we do a startup in Godot, go back here. Then we need to use our properties here. Stop. Go to core. Go into here. Yep. In value. We should flatten it after just for actual order of operations. And I could combine these two dots. Just not the biggest fan of doing that, but first arguments now contains one key. Path is that. And then we are going to print that. do a standard out. Might need to do a standard out. Standard out. Bug.print, that should work. Go. Show output from debug. So why isn't it printing after we debug print? Puzzling. Oh well. Okay, we need to then set up our resource objects here. That, use a resource, call it default startup. Script is going to be startup resource is going to have a script. We are going to load core startup resources, startup script, open that, jump to U, resource extends a resource, and it has export on a packed scene, which will be our, our mesh renderer. Scene engine manager. And let's see. Inventory, mesh renderer. Should be able to run with this at the moment. We build, we should have 3 packed scenes we can use. So then our inventory scene goes here. our collision manager goes here. Our mesh renderer goes here. To make a quick interim commit, have 3 kitties visible. Sherbet tends to be stealthy, so he can be harder to pin down on camera. And like I had mentioned, Sky is soaking up the ear scratches on my lap here. Okay, so we have all that. We hop back over here. Actually, we need to go to this. We are going to go up into core. To copy path. That. It's probably going to need quotes. One moment. Okay. We're going to be able to have spaces, so we need to be able to handle that. Over here, we have during our extraction, when we get a value, we can do trim prefix and suffix to strip those out. I'm just seeing. Might be a faster way to do that, but this will do for now. We are stripping out double quotes. Settings, command line. It's this here. Book properties, we have our command line. To that. Start in Godot. Oh, that's right. Doesn't debug print properly. Or at least I'm not doing it right such that it debug prints properly. Okay, we have what should be our resource startup path now. So then string I may make a global function, like a static toolkit thing for our project here. Okay, so we've parsed it out. We have a path. So for this one, it's if we have an override. That's our default. We will override it if that is found. F. Source loader. Load startup resource path. We're going to need to do this in onReady. So we are going to take you. You become a member variable. So we now have our startup resource. If we never get our startup resource, it's fine that it explodes. Wait, override. Override ready. This is when we are going to add our game type, which also needs to be part of our arguments. Old game scene. Just so. So we're going to start with the game. We're going to load the game object when we ready in our core here. Node. Resource loader. Load. Sorry, no. Startup resource. Game. Not a resource, it's a startup resource. Test it over to a startup resource. If that doesn't work, it's okay that it explodes. It's hiding. We need a script file to define it. Okay, we're getting there. Or startup resources. Rename this file startup resource. Startup resource is a type of resource. We go back into Godot. Delete default startup resource. We are going to create new. We're going to create a resource, which is a default. This should that in there. This exists. It should now exist everywhere if we build. And we comment out the broken line. Now, create a new resource. Have a startup. We have to be able to set it up properly as a startup resource type. Why can we not? It should exist as a type in Godot now. Doesn't. Weird that I have to define it that way. Maybe I need to do it that way, and I just forgot that you need to do it that way. Oh well. Game render collision inventory. For UI. Render and then game scene. Why does it not have... Because I've loaded it. We have that type in place. As values. Oh. Make sure. Is it that silly? It was probably that silly. It was that silly. Okay, this is the game node. So add child game node. Now this is double weird because what we have is we have two instances of this running simultaneously. There are there's a lot more rendering going on right now. So let's stop it here, and I'm going to show it on the Godot side. Hop back over to our... Click on this. Hop back over to the Godot side. We're going to look at our remote. We have two different nodes containing all of the same things. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove game here in our core. And we'll run it again. So now part of the configuration of it is that startup resource. So in theory, if I want to do effectively dependency injection going forward, I can use those startup resources in order to change which services I pass in. So I can override it and say there is no game node. It is like an empty node. Well, a dummy seed. Which all it does is implement the same things. What I'll need to do to make that work, though, is create an interface over top of it that has all of that stuff. I will have to figure out how to do that cleanly. What I can probably do is have a base class that is a game handler kind of thing, and do one child class under it that is an override class kind of stuff. The real one contains all of the overrides. Yeah. But one step at a time. So then in our game, we have Entity Manager, which is going to be overridden. So this one needs to have specific variables here for what the node types are going to be. This one is our renderer. Not exported. Okay, I have these 3 packed scenes. We are going to get them in here. Okay, so then in our ready, we are going to renderer instantiate. Name. We'll need constants for these later. We'll get there. Three. Okay, we go through, we add the children. So now if we go in here and we go into our game state here. Check our resource, make sure we've got everything set up. Let's go into our game here and make sure we don't have... we need to initialize this thing. But can we pass in the values in core when we instantiate it? Because it's something that it can't be in the constructor. It can't be in the constructor. We need... that. And then in our core, we create that node. Cool if we could instantiate with constructor, you know. This parameter we needed what? The renderer, so it is startup resource render. There are wrinkles to how we're doing this. Like, we can't do it on constructor. It has to be during the initialize. Go, and we're going to hop over to the Godot side. We look at core. We have game, we have render, collision manager, and inventory. Welcome back, Todd. So we have all of our goodies back again. All of this stuff is being loaded based on a configuration resource, which we can thus change for the purposes of testing. I would still need to build some infrastructure around that so that we could have different scenes for it. I will need to create a dummy shell, essentially. Change all of, create a copy that has all of the relevant functions and add virtuals to them so we can override them. Because most of them will do nothing. Like, if I set up a game object, it will have the same initialize method. That won't be something that is... and it will accept those, but by default, it does nothing with those. It just stores them off and sits on them. The child class would be what I actually have right now, which is still a game node. Like we'd have base game and base collision manager, that kind of stuff, just to get the frame in place. We might actually call it like an eye thing, like pretend it's an interface. But yeah. So we're almost there. Almost there. And what this does, if you look, this is more and more stripped down because this stuff is coming in. One of the things we're going to have to do next one of the big leaps is getting Entity Manager over. Because Entity Manager is going to be a bit of a mess. All of the other things depend on Entity Manager. So we need to make sure that we're passing that along into them. It's a daisy chain kind of concept. We could pre-instantiate some of the child nodes to these and pass those in. We could have the core completely construct the game node whenever it needs to, but I feel like having it relay them down is just as good. We'll have to see. I think relay down is a better concept. Because we want the managers to be scrubbed and remade every time, the core is handing the startup... Okay, the core could hand the startup resource down, because the core doesn't know what the game is going to do with the startup resource. Okay. So when game is initialized, it's going to get startup resource, because core doesn't know what game is going to do with it. Let's start. Come on now. Okay, and it should still function now. Not. Oh. Calling initializing core. We're just going to do that. And we look, click, back. We have all of our pieces. Named accordingly, we will go through and we will change these layers to set the creation of these to also have readable names. But we can prefabricate some of these as well. Okay. Yeah. I think we're at a good clean spot for the day. Good clean spot. It doesn't look like a lot changed, but the ramifications of what we did change are significant. With a little bit more work, we'll get Entity Manager in there. What we'll have to do is we're going to instantiate each object as a specific class. Then we're going to pass initialization values into it to say, okay, game node, your entity, game node here is the startup resource as well. Do what you want with it. Startup resource is a Godot stand-in for C# service manager kind of behavior. Because these things are Godot entities, they are like a node kind of stuff. They aren't really a C# service. They are things that can exist in Godot land. So we have to set them up according to that kind of logic. We might be able to do it as a parent class and interface kind of thing. It would depend on how we need to set it up. But ultimately, because it has to go into Godot and we have to deal with pack scenes, we'll do that. So again, the startup resource is where these objects will look at it and say, these are my pieces. I need these to function, kind of stuff. So each object needs to have that set before it's added to the tree, before the ready can happen. I might then need to have a like wrapper function that does all that for us. So you pass in a self, you pass in the object that you want created, kind of thing. So the sequence is obeyed. Yeah. But we made some progress today. I hope you all had fun watching along as we did this. Again, it might not have seemed like anything changed, but under the hood, something significant changed. If you like what you saw and would like to see more, remember to like, follow, subscribe. I do post the upcoming streams usually the day or the day before that I know they're going to happen. Periodically, I have to bump them, and I try to avoid making them visible and then bumping them on you. But yes, like, follow, subscribe, press all the good buttons. It helps the channel grow and helps make sure that you are notified when a new stream is going live. With all that said, I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.